Thank you, Kathy, for the wonderful introduction. There's really not much to say beyond that, but we're really excited to be hosting this event tonight. Having all of the mayoral candidates, that are from both parties here, really is a very important discussion that we're very proud to be a part of. The Observer, we care about this city because we're about this city, and having these people here tonight who are going to talk about the future of this city after 20 years of incredible leadership and growth, the future really is very important, and it's going to be very interesting to hear what everyone has to say about it. I want to thank, obviously, the 92nd Street Y for a great partnership. Like the Observer, we both care about making sure that this city has a very bright future, and so tonight's conversation will be a great one. And then really my job tonight is to introduce our moderators, which I'll do, and obviously they'll come off and they will introduce all of our candidates who will be up. And while we have a lot of very impressive people, anyone who runs in politics, I have a tremendous amount of respect for, because running this city is a difficult job and probably a pretty thankless job, but a very important job. And so while we have a lot of very impressive and devoted people who are going to be up on stage tonight, only one of them will be our next mayor. So it'll be a great debate, and I'm going to introduce the two Kens tonight who will be moderating. Ken Fisher. Ken is a former city councilman and the host of the public affairs show Citywide. And then Ken Kurson, who is the editor-in-chief of the New York Observer and editorial director of the Observer Media Group. So tonight will be a great, and don't pull any punches. So.
Thanks.
Do you want to introduce the candidates?
Yeah. Why don't you do that?
Okay. Thank you, everybody. I'm Ken Kurson. I'm joined by Ken Fisher. We'll be your moderators this evening. And without any further ado, you're not here to hear from us. You're here to hear from someone who will be the next mayor of New York City. I'll introduce the Republican candidates in alphabetical order. We've got Red Apple Group CEO John Catsimatidis. The Doe Fund founder, George McDonald. And former MTA chairman, Joe Loda. So you'll give them the rules, and then we'll go.
Hi, everybody. Let me just tell you what the ground rules are going to be. They're the same for both debates. We're going to ask the candidates to give 1-minute opening statements, and they're also going to be giving 1-minute closing statements. In between, we're going to be asking questions that each of the candidates will answer. Some of those questions are coming from the two Kens. We made it easy for you. You only have to remember it's yes, Ken. Some of the questions are going to be coming from the two Kens, but most of the questions are actually coming from members of the 92nd Street Y. They were submitted through the Facebook page, index cards tonight from which we've selected some questions, and also you'll see some videos of people asking questions here at the Y. We would caution the candidates that if you go over the 1-minute limits, we have the right to remove some time from your closing statement. If you don't feel you need a whole minute, feel free to yield that time, although I've never seen that happen in a political debate. We want to get as many questions in as we can. And one other thing, which is that Ken and I will have the right to ask follow-up questions. Our follow-up questions may be directed to just one of you or perhaps one or two of you. If one of you calls out the name of another candidate, we'll give that candidate the opportunity to respond. Those follow-up questions or responses, only 30 seconds each. We'll try and get as many questions in as we can. And with that, the debate is on.
Thank you, everybody. Our first question for the Republican candidates will be, we've been hearing a lot about the controversial
opening statement.
Oh, yes, we've got opening statements, of course. Yes. We're going to go in alphabetical order. John Catsimatidis is first.
Mayor Bloomberg has done a tremendous job in New York City in the last 11 years. And I was a candidate. I was going to run for mayor in 2009, and I had the nomination. And when Mayor Bloomberg wanted it, and I gave it back to him. It's all about winning. Mayor Bloomberg has done a great job. And he has brought in tens of billions of dollars into New York City from Europe, from Asia, from Middle East, Far East, South America. Leadership, People believed in him, in his leadership qualities, and if they don't believe in the next mayor, a lot of those dollars dry up. We got to keep New York going forward. New York is the greatest city in the world. I grew up in this city. I lived in the city all my life, and I feel it's my obligation that I give back to the community a little bit of keeping New York number one, and that's why I'm running.
Thank you. Next we have Joe Loda.
Thank you, Ken. I love this city. I love its diversity. I love its neighborhoods, but most importantly, I love its 24-hour heartbeat. The reason why I'm running for mayor is because I think this city, the people of this city deserve a clean city, a safe city, a city with a high quality of life. It should be a city where we can all work, where we can all have fun, where we can all make an investment and raise our families here. I'm running for mayor of the city of New York. I want to use the skills, the common sense skills that I learned in the private sector, as well as the skills that I honed in the government sector when I worked for Rudy Giuliani. The 4 issues that I will talk about throughout this campaign are a core part of my vision. First and foremost, economic development policies and tax strategies that will help create jobs in the city of New York and help diversify our economy. The second issue that I will always talk about is education and allowing our children to have choice so that they can be properly educated to compete in the global environment. Third, laser-like focus on crime and increasing and enhancing the quality of life in all 5 boroughs. And then finally, I will talk about the ability to reorganize the government, streamline the government, make it less bureaucratic, make it more transparent and responsive to the people. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, we have Mr. McDonald.
Good evening, Ken. And Ken, thank you for having us here and for this debate. I'm running for mayor of New York because I have a vision and a plan. 25 years ago, I went to Grand Central Terminal and fed homeless people every night for 700 nights in a row. And I heard what they said. They appreciated the sandwich, but what they wanted was a room and a job to pay for it. And I concluded from that that they wanted to work, but they were in the worst circumstances that anybody could be. But yet we put together a program that since 1990 has generated $700 million in revenue. $250 million of it has gone into the pockets of the men and women in the blue uniforms with ready, willing, and able on their back and the American sleeve, on the American flag on their sleeve. I want to be able to create full employment in New York City, along with affordable housing that people can live in. I've kept people housed and safe. We've fed them. We've put money in their pockets, and most importantly, we've given them hope for the future, and I want to do that for all of New York City.
Great, terrific. So let's start with the questions. This will be for all of you. We've heard a lot in the news about the stop and frisk controversy. Some people feel it's been a necessary tool to lower New York crime to rates not seen since the 1950s. Others feel that it unfairly targets certain New Yorkers. Now we're hearing that an inspector general with some sort of oversight of the New York Police Department may be voted into law. If that becomes law, if New York is required to have an inspector general, would any of you move to repeal or weaken this law in any way if you were elected mayor, or would you leave the law as it is? We'll go in the same order as we started. Mr. Katzmatidis.
I believe New York already has enough laws and enough inspectors. We got 5 DAs. We have 2 U.S. attorneys. We have the Civilian Complaint Review Board. And we have a police commissioner that's supposed to, the mayor is supposed to have confidence in his police commissioner. I don't believe we need another inspector general to do this. The stop and frisk law needs some modification, but we can't let it go away. New York City is the safest city in the world. Commissioner Kelly has made it one of the safest cities in the world, and we cannot give the streets back. The stop and frisk law is going to go away by itself. There's new technology for the 21st century. It's going to be a robot or a handgun that identifies if somebody is carrying a concealed weapon. And that's going to happen, so the stop and frisk law over the next year or 2 will go away by itself.
Okay, Mr. Loda?
I too don't believe that the Inspector General law is necessary. My hope is that the mayor will veto it and the veto would be sustained. But if not, what would I do as mayor? I would do everything I can to say that it's not necessary, whether, as I understand it, it'll be part of the Department of Investigation, which reports to the mayor. So in a sense, having an Inspector General that reports to the mayor with oversight over the mayor's appointee absolutely makes no sense. John is right. We have 5 district attorneys. We have 2 U.S. attorneys. We've got 2 different, the CCRB and 1 other commission, as well as the Internal Affairs Bureau. Give them the power to go in, but what the City Council wants to do is not just look at infractions of the police department, but actually look at the strategy and question the strategy of the police commissioner. That's unnecessary. I will tell you, when it comes to stop and frisk, anybody who recommends the elimination of stop and frisk is actually putting people in danger. Stop and frisk has helped reduce crime tremendously over the last 11 years, and we must see it through, and we must continue the training of police officers so that they know the appropriate way to use stop, question, and frisk.
Right. There's also, civilian control of the police department. Well, there's a professional police person in charge of it. He is a civilian. I favor stop, question, and frisk, but I believe that as a tool, it's going to go on to focus. Instead of in these communities, everybody getting thrown up against the wall, we have to focus on who the bad players are, who the criminals are, and the police know who they are. They're now using the CompStat as a method to be able to further identify people in precincts, go visit them, and suggest to them that all levels of law enforcement are now working together to protect society against this violence. We also, when the police come with new trainees, twice a year, and they go to the high crime areas, and they're rookies. They should be trained better, and experienced police officers ought to go to the high crime areas.
Gentlemen, the City of New York has a budget in the tens of billions of dollars. A significant portion of that, about $6 or $7 billion a year, is used to purchase services from the outside. It could be the construction of a building, the architecture that goes with it. It could be a daycare center. It could be consulting services. Sometimes that goes wrong, as we saw with the city time computer contracts, but there's also been a lot of criticism, particularly from the Democratic candidates, about the city's use of its purchasing power to make it accessible for women and minority-owned businesses. In fact, the new law has gone into effect, that supported by the mayor, to help encourage women and minority-owned businesses. So when it comes to contracting out, are we doing too much of it? Should we bring the work back in? Do we have the capacity to manage it? And how do we use the city's purchasing power to advance other social goals? Why don't we start with Mr. McDonald, Mr. Loder, and then Mr. Katzimatidis.
Well, that's a favorite subject of mine. For example, applesauce in the apple shouldn't come from China. The Board of Education, or the Department of Education now, is a large purchaser of all kinds of things that we could make in New York City. Why aren't we making these products in the Bronx? I understand the minority business part of it, and that's good. But business in general, why aren't we using this as a catalyst to develop new business, develop the city's purchasing power, build it here, buy it here, grow it here? We should use what we buy to create new businesses and new jobs instead of raising taxes. It's a way of getting full employment and creating jobs and bringing, for example, in the Bronx, it's 13% unemployment. In the city, it's 9% unemployment. For young African American men, it's off of the charts.
Ken, I think New York City should absolutely use its purchasing power to develop the minority communities, but most importantly, all small businesses. What I did at the MTA while I was there, they have a $5 billion capital program. We started a small business development program. And as part of that small business development program, any business that was small that got involved in building either the 2nd Avenue subway or East Side Access or the renovation of any of our subway stations were brought on board and they were trained how to do it so that they could also bid on the jobs in the future. What happens when you change it from an MWBE program to a small business program? You get women, you get minorities, you get African Americans, Latinos, and you also get a preference group that really no one's focusing on, and that's veterans. We need to treat our veterans the same way as we're treating all of the others, because they're serving our country in Iraq and Afghanistan, and when they come back, we've got to make sure that they have jobs. There's ways for New York City to use its purchasing power. The other night at the police forum, or the public safety forum that was held out in Jamaica, Queens, someone asked the question, should the NYPD use its purchasing power in connection with how they purchase guns to get the manufacturers or the folks who are building the bullets to do it? Absolutely they should. The city spends $70 billion a year. We should use that power.
Mr. Katsmatidis?
I believe that New York City businesses that purchase services should try to use other New York City businesses and promote them. I don't know what kind of incentive we could do for them to do that, because you have to create some kind of incentive.
I'm talking about government spending specifically.
Government spending, we should definitely use our purchasing power to give business to our local businesses. After all, no matter what the price is, if the price is equal to a New Jersey business, look at all the taxes we're collecting from a New York business. So if it's equal to a New Jersey company making a bid to a New York company and they're both equal, we're actually buying it cheaper, because New York City businesses, they pay income taxes and they pay business taxes.
Can I say something to that? Oh, no.
Our rules really don't allow for that. Maybe we'll get the opportunity to come back to it later.
All right, so now we have a question from 92nd Street Y's Facebook page. This particular topic generated a tremendous amount of interest. I'm sure it'll be of great interest to a lot of people in the audience. The Yorkville East Harlem community is galvanized and horrified by the Bloomberg plan to ship all of Manhattan's residential and commercial garbage through the Asphalt Green Community Center on East 91st Street. People on the page describe that as a treasure that is used by people all over the city, especially here, and they note that it's so close to Gracie Mansion that that's an irony. Would you continue that plan? Let's start with Joe Lota and go down the row.
Well, I have a history with that facility. In 2000 and 2001, I was assigned with closing Fresh Kills, and in the process of closing Fresh Kills, I closed down that marine transfer facility. And I will tell you, when I'm elected mayor, it will not become a marine transfer facility. I want to make sure what we need to recognize is that there's this concept of fair share in the environmental world. And fair share means that Manhattan garbage shouldn't go to any other borough, and any other borough shouldn't come to Manhattan. And I agree with that. The garbage in New York that comes out of the borough of Manhattan and the contracts that I negotiated actually go to New Jersey. They should continue to go to New Jersey.
Right, they should.
And they should. The independent budget office has said that by doing that, it's actually less expensive than what Mayor Bloomberg wants to do. The environmental hazards of putting that facility back into play is extraordinarily high, and we cannot let our children by all the public schools that use that, continue to have that type of hazard. It will close. In fact, it won't ever open.
Video?
Mr. McDonald, same question to you.
So my two grandsons swim there. I remember when it was a transfer station and the giant elephants, white, lined up, going through the neighborhood constantly, day and night. Under my administration, we won't have that. We'll have a solid waste plan that has energy to waste, waste to energy in New Jersey, just like Joe said. Well, the garbage trucks just go right to New Jersey, dump it, and then come back. What could be more efficient than that?
Right.
So I'm against it. Obviously, we have to have a solid waste plan. We in Manhattan have to be responsible for our waste, and we will do that by shipping it to New Jersey.
Mr. Katsmatidis.
I agree with both candidates. I don't think we should have that plant in Manhattan. We should I agree we should ship it to Jersey. So I think we got a unanimous opinion here. We're not going to have it there. It's not going to happen, full stop. And if we could ship it to Jersey, that's where it's going.
We're all together.
We're going to have
Enjoy
another
Kurson
question
later.
that was suggested by someone from the 92nd Street Y, and they're going to tell you what that question is themselves. Let's go to the video.
I have one child in a gifted and talented school with the Department of Education and one child that we hope to have come in. This year, the policies for admission have changed significantly. What is your view on the future for gifted and talented education in the city, and how families should look at whether siblings can get in easily or in a more difficult manner as the policies may change?
So the question is, policies for admission for gifted programs, should the city have them? If you have one child that's accepted in the program, should you have an expectation that another child will be able to get into it so they're in the same school at the same times? What's your take on these kinds of specialized programs? Why don't we start with Mr. McDonald, Mr. Katsmatidis, and then Mr. Loda?
Well, let's talk about education generally. I'm for a longer day, a longer week, a longer year for co-locating schools, for to answer this question, and evaluation. We have to have evaluation. At the Doe Fund, we've always had evaluation from the very beginning. We evaluate everything that we do. If we can't measure it, we can't do it. The public expects a return on their investment, and we have to know how we're measuring that. We have to measure it somehow. Now, to answer this specific question, I'm dealing with it right now. My grandson is in first grade, and Tommy, who's 3 years old, is going to go to pre-K. And they want him to go to the same school because he's a sibling. I believe that keeping families and children together is a very important concept in education, if we can do it.
John?
I went to Brooklyn Tech High School. I believe in great education for New York City, and Brooklyn Tech gave us a great education. The specialized schools in New York are capable of really, really teaching it. As a matter of fact, myself and Len Riggio were so grateful. We got a whole bunch of alumni to donate $10 million to the Brooklyn Tech Foundation. First time ever done for a public high school. And I urge more people to raise money like that for public schools. If one child makes it and the other one doesn't, I think that's the way it is. It's whatever happens, happens. We can't go backwards. We have to make sure our children get the best education possible.
Joe?
No question our children need the best education possible. New York needs a first-rate education for all of its children. The specific question about whether or not we should have more special needs schools and special programs for gifted children, we should do everything we possibly can. One of the things that amazes me about the Department of Education is we're spending $19,000 per student. And if that's twice the national average. We've got to be doing better with what we have and what we're spending overall. I agree, we need longer days. I think we need longer school years. I think we've got to do everything to get our children properly prepared. If it's possible to get one sibling in school with the other sibling, it would be a great idea because families don't have to send kids in different directions and different buses. But and we need to be able to figure that out. We've been dividing our schools up into various different specialized schools when we close them down and reconstitute them. And so we should be able to do that with all of the money that we're spending. We've got to do something.
Let me ask a very quick follow-up question. Short answers, please. Mike Bloomberg, when he ran, said he was going to be the education mayor. He's certainly done things differently than were done in the past. Has he done a good job with the schools, or would you give him a failing grade? John?
I think overall Mike Bloomberg has done a decent job, but we have a long way to go. I think we're falling backwards. We have more dropouts in our school system than ever before. I've been an advocate of changing the current system where we're forcing everybody to take an academic course. I've been an advocate of separating it, being able to give the children a choice of taking vocational courses so they don't drop out, and giving them a choice to learn a vocation.
George?
I have the disposition to preserve and the ability to improve. And I think that after 12 years of this administration, there's going to be a lot of things that we can improve on. And obviously, education is one of those. But I wouldn't go tearing down the progress that we've made. I would just want to build on it and improve it.
Joe?
Mike Bloomberg was able to get mayoral control after Ed Koch wanted it, and as well as David Dinkins and Rudy Giuliani. And I think he's done a good job with it. He's gotten decentralized, he's gotten it down, the budget's down to the school level. Granted, it's been 10 years, but it's been almost 100 years of what used to be the Board of Education and how awful that was. We've got, the next mayor is going to have to take it to the next level, to new heights, and find ways to make sure that our kids get trained. As John said, we've got a dropout problem. My experience at City University of New York, 81% of the incoming class to the 7 community colleges, they weren't capable of doing college-level work. That's an indictment of our system. We've got to find a way to do better.
Let's keep it right here on education for a little bit. We'll go John, George, and Joe for this one. Only 9 African-American students and 24 Latino students were admitted to the incoming freshman class at Stuyvesant High School. Overall, 618 out of 5,000 students admitted to the specialized high schools this year were Black or Hispanic. Do you think we should be making changes to encourage a more diverse student body at the specialized high school? And if so, what specific policies would you advocate in this regard? Mr. Katzmatidis.
I think what we have to do is the kids have to have the desire to go to those schools, and they have to work at it. We can't give out just freebies. During grammar school, we should provide special teachers to give them lessons on trying to pass that exam. Let them work hard to get into it, and let's not continue with just say, okay, you're Black or you're Latino, just go. It's not the right way. Make the kids want to go and make them work hard to get there. And if you teach them how to work hard, they'll work hard in life too.
Okay.
Look, the mass incarceration of African American men has resulted in families that are broken, that they don't have fathers in the house, the fathers have been in prison, there's no role model for the children. We have, in our program last night, my wife told me about somebody who was 25 years old, and he had 6 children by 6 different women. So, you know, we have to address that. That's an important issue. And the first part of it is that they have to have jobs. People have to work. We have to have full employment. And then maybe we can get them to support the children and be there. I mean, it's become the cultural norm that because children have grown up in a house without the father, these men who are impregnating the teenage women don't believe that they have any responsibility, don't believe that they should be in the house. And that's something that we have to address as a city and as a culture.
Okay.
Ken, I think for the students who go to the specialized schools, they should take the test. They should want to go, as John said, and they should be able to pass the test. The fact of the matter is, those in the inner city, African Americans and Latinos, are not reaching that level. So again, it's an indictment of the education system. What do we need to do to make these kids want to go to those schools? What do we do to educate these students? Absolutely right, what George McDonald has said. Senator Moynihan wrote about this in the 1960s. He actually said the family structure is going to have a significant impact on our entire world, and it's specifically in the education world. And if we don't do something about it, we're going to lose generations upon generations of inner city kids. We also have to change the way we teach the kids. You know, when all of us were younger, our mothers used to read to us, and we would read to our mothers. We've failed a generation of mothers that are out there. We have got to find a way to grasp on and find new technologies, new ways of teaching our kids and our inner city kids. And I think, you know, John talked about using vocational. That's great. Michael Bloomberg's talking about using the sciences. That's great. We need to do things to get kids interested in education again.
Gentlemen, one of the signature initiatives of Mike Bloomberg, one of the things that didn't come from his staff, it came from his own experience, was instead of having a private office in City Hall, he took the former Board of Estimate chamber, a room this size, put all of his key aides in there. The deputy mayors sit around them. It's like the trading floor down on Wall Street. He sits in the middle of it, and he runs the city out of the bullpen. If you are elected mayor, will you keep the bullpen or go back to a system of private offices for the mayor and his aides? And whichever way you're going to do it, what does it say about your approach and style of government? Joe, we'll start with you.
I would go back to the old way and go back to the offices and not use a bullpen. I've worked in a bullpen before, and I understand why they're important, especially if you're trading to make sure everyone participates. I would have a very different management style than Mike Bloomberg. Mike Bloomberg hires his commissioners, and he makes believe that these commissioners are chief executive officers, and they run each one of the agencies without talking to the other commissioners, without involvement of City Hall, without direction from the deputy mayors. I have a much more centralized approach. I think the mayor is the chief executive officer, and the commissioner of finance and the budget director and all the other commissioners are really the operating agency heads who report into the CEO. And I want to make sure that all of the agencies work with each other. You know, if you talk to small businesses all around the city, you find out that the Department of Consumer Affairs and the Department of Health and the Buildings Department, none of them talk to each other, none of them coordinate. They're harassed, they're under siege by all of these agencies. City Hall needs to focus on what's important. And so on the question of management style, the management style will be directed from City Hall the way it has been in the past.
John? Bullpen?
I believe in that bullpen. I like it. I run some of my companies that way, and it just keeps everybody in the loop. You have your eye on everybody. You have a problem, you just yell over to the right, yell over to the left. It works. You know, what is it all about? It's about working. It does work, and I think it works for Mike Bloomberg. It'll probably work for me too.
George?
My plan is for full employment and creating jobs. I want to build 75,000 micro units. We already, as an organization, built one in the year 2000 on East 117th Street. The rents are from $400 to $800. They're 275 square feet, and it looks like a Park Avenue building. I want 75,000 of those. We have to right-size our housing market. We have 1.8 million singles and only 1 million apartments for them. We have older people living in 2- and 3-bedroom apartments in the housing authority, and we have to right-size it. I believe that Mike Bloomberg is a great man. He's a great mayor. I think that that's a rare combination. And I don't know, I'm more interested in who would be the police commissioner in November and taking a look at the budget and seeing what we can do about public safety going forward. I think that those are important issues. Housing, jobs, and safety.
I don't think I heard an answer to bullpen or private office.
I gave my answer.
All right, I guess we'll accept that. Our next question is another one from the 92nd Street Y's Facebook. It's a very active Facebook page. This comes from Carolyn Williams. She wants to know, it's no secret that we have what are expected to be tough labor negotiations coming up. What are your views on wages and benefits for public employees? How will you ensure city employees are treated fairly and equitably, but also taxpayers who have a big stake in this are treated fairly? Mr. Loda, we'll go first to you.
Well, let me discuss my philosophy of labor negotiations, those that I've used in the private sector and those that I've used in the public sector. I actually believe in a fair day's wage for a fair day's work. We now have 153 bargaining units in the city of New York that don't have a contract. Many of them want retroactive pay. I want to talk about what the city can afford going forward. We have 1.5% in the budget going forward, and they're going to want a little bit higher than that. I will negotiate based on what we can afford and look at what the present value of that is. So if we're going to have a 4-year deal going from this point forward, we'll do the 4-year deal. If the union wants some of it as a lump sum up front and they want to lower the amount of the payment over time, I'll be more than happy to negotiate with them on that. At the same point in time, I want to make sure that that lump sum is not pensionable, that that lump sum is not put into the base. There's a way to get this done. I've worked with unions all the time. You have to increase. I will go into the negotiations always understanding that the mayor of New York represents the people of the city of New York and represents the taxpayers. And one of the reasons why I'm in this race is that I saw what was going on with all of the Democratic candidates and how they are kowtowing to the unions. That will not happen when I'm mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Katsimatidis, you're next.
I've dealt with unions all my life in most of my companies. We've never had a problem. You have the ability to sit down at a table and bring both sides together. And by 4 o'clock in the morning, if you're sitting there, everybody tends to settle all the problems. It used to be smoke-filled rooms, but we can't have smoke-filled rooms anymore. We do have a problem going forward. We do have a lot of unions that are owed retroactive, and something has to be worked out with them with a partial payment up front and with a partial payment over the next 3 to 4 years. Thank you.
And finally, Mr. McDonald.
So I'm not going to negotiate with the unions in public. I don't think that that's a good thing to do. But there are several things that I can say right now that I wouldn't sign any labor union contract unless it had health insurance participation on the part of the employee. The state does it, everybody else does it, but the city of New York doesn't get a dime for reimbursing health care costs. The fringe on a city employee is 70%. Imagine that. Every employee we have is 70%. Now, we went through a terrible time, 2007, 2008. Business in general cut back, layoffs, salary cuts. And, you know, I'm sure that all of us would like to go back and get that money, but we can't do that, and neither can the unions. We have to go forward working together, and that's how we're going to approach the budget.
Great question.
So we have another question that was suggested by one of the WISE members, and we're going to hear from that person right now. Let's go to the video.
My name is Selig Alpern. I've been living in Manhattan all my life. I am 89 years old. We have 4 or 5 limiteds flying down Lexington Avenue, and we have to wait 20 minutes for a local. From 10 o'clock in the morning till 4 o'clock in the afternoon, there should be no limiteds. There should only be limiteds from 4 to 7 and 7 to 10 in the morning. When is the MTA going to stop sending limiteds all day long? They are not necessary from 10 in the morning till 4 p.m. It's a pet peeve of mine, and I wish it would be corrected.
Mine too, it's Joe's fault.
All right, it looks like we've got our first accusation of the evening. Mr. McDonald has accused Mr.
He's
Loda of that being
responsible
his
for the
fault,
bunching.
So we'll let Mr. Loda respond. Should there be more locals and fewer limiteds?
Sure, there probably should be. And had this 89-year-old gentleman called me while I was at the MTA, I would have done something, because anybody can tell you that I returned every one of my phone calls and I returned every one of the letters where that was a concern of all of the riders of the system. And I considered riders to be customers. And in my world, a customer is always right. And I went and I put back a lot of the services that had been cut 2 years before so that I could focus on all of the growth that was necessary at the MTA. It's only there for a year, a little over a year. But I will tell you, I have experienced, since I'm no longer employed, I'm taking the bus a lot often. And I, too, get peeved at the fact that I see all of these express buses going by, and I want to get on the locals. So I've made it a point. I called Tom Prendergast literally last week and saying, what is going on? Why can't these buses stop more locally? I did not realize how bad it is here on the Upper East Side.
Mr. McDonald, you...
So, you know, my wife and I, when we got married 25 years ago, Harriet lived in Beverly Hills, and they have earthquakes there. And as soon as I was in the first one, I said, take me to the airport. And she did, and we moved to New York. And now, every day, because we live at 84th and 2nd, every day there's an earthquake in my house, and she makes fun of me because I really am scared. I'm telling you the truth. It is like these explosions go off for 8, 9, 10 seconds. If you go 1 and 2 and 3, and you get to 8, it's still going on. So that will relieve the buses once the 2nd Avenue subway is finished, and this time we're assured that it will be finished. So I'm looking forward to that, and I hope I'm still alive and not under a whole pile of bricks.
Mr. Katsimatidis?
Well, I would put Joe Loader in charge. It's management. If you do get complaints, as mayor, you have a 311 system. If you get complaints, people have to address them. And if their limiteds are making too few stops, then you have to adjust the system. And it's pure simple. Adjust the system where the limiteds make more stops. And you just need qualified people to solve those kind of problems.
Can I just take 10 seconds? Because I think it's important to also understand one important thing. The MTA is not controlled by the mayor of the city of New York. And I believe that needs to change.
Right, me too.
The bridges and tunnels that we have in the city of New York, they're going up at a rate that is ridiculous. They've went up this year. I was part of that. It's going to go up in 2 years from now and another 2 years after that. It's got to stop. And the mayor of New York and the city council of New York should be determining how our mass transit works. We need to get control of our destiny here in New York. We absolutely need to get control of all of our transportation.
I agree. I agree with Joe that the mayor of New York, it's a responsibility of the mayor of New York to be in charge of the MTA, and we should negotiate that the mayor should be in charge, and because somebody has to be responsible how these trains run because they serve the people of the city of New York.
We should take the transit authority out of the MTA. The mayor doesn't want responsibility for the MTA, just the New York City Transit Authority. And I believe that we have to have the mayor accountable because you all want to hold somebody accountable.
Right.
They create the MTA and these kinds of agencies for obfuscation. Who's responsible? Who do you complain to? Joe's not there anymore, so you can't complain to him.
They still
Can
do.
I ask a brief follow-up question, though? John, I believe that you called recently for the TBTA, the Tri-Borough Bridge and Tunnel Authority, for surplus money from their tolls. You did that, Joe? To no longer subsidize the subway. Actually, it was the Post attributed to you, Joe. I couldn't believe
Yes.
that you were the actual one who had said that.
No.
So are you calling for rebates for drivers
No,
at the
Ken,
expense of strap hangers?
No, what I'm talking about is that right now the Tri-Borough Bridge and Tunnel Authority, the Verrazano Bridge, Throgs Neck, Tri-Borough, all the rest of them generate $600 million in surplus, which comes to the Long Island Railroad, Metro North, and the New York City Transit Authority. So the question's got to be, why are the drivers subsidizing as much as they are? It's gone up a whole lot faster than the fares have gone on the subways. And quite honestly, the mayor, these bridges connect the 5 boroughs. We have people from upstate making decisions about what the tolls are going to be in the 5 boroughs, and we need to get control of it. Now the question going to be asked, rightfully so, the $600 million that's supposed to go to mass transit, where's it going to come from? Do you realize the state of New York subsidizes its mass transit the lowest, the last in the country? We used to be first in everything. We're now last in the amount that we subsidize our mass transit on a per rider basis. It's half of what they do in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, half of what they do in Illinois, and it shouldn't be that way. They've stolen money. Albany has stolen money from the MTA, and that's got to stop.
Hit the time.
You know, we are the highest in something. We're the highest tax state. We're the highest taxed city in America. People are moving to Texas at a greater rate than ever before.
We have
Time for one more.
one question from the audience, and
This will probably be our last question, Ken.
one question that was submitted from the audience, and then we're going to go to the closing statement. So the mayor has proposed a upzoning of Midtown East in order to modernize office buildings. A lot of people who live in the vicinity are concerned that the area is already dense and overcrowded. The subways can't handle any more. There's also the fact that now Midtown East would be competing with Hudson Yards and the far west side, where not that many years ago that was going to be the next business district for the city. So Midtown East, for it or against it, we'll do George, and then John, and then Joe.
Well, generally speaking, I'm for it because I believe it creates jobs and also additional tax revenue. I want to see the 426G program that they used after 9/11 downtown to convert commercial space into residential space used in the Garment Center and other places in the city so that we can create more affordable housing along with the development of Midtown. Because I think one of the crises that we face in New York City is affordable housing. And until we address that, we won't be the thriving business center that we want to be. And also, obviously, we have to stop treating small business like it's a revenue stream for the city and fining them. Jobs are created by small business development. That's where new job growth comes from.
I'm for development. I think it's got to be closely watched. But if you ever been down in downtown Tokyo or downtown Shanghai or downtown Hong Kong, then you see density. You know, we have to bring more business into New York. Don't forget, our budget keeps going up and up and up. I mean, if we can't bring in new revenues from new people, then we're not going to be able to meet our budgets. And it's about creating a bigger enterprise and developing more people coming into New York.
Ken, I'm in favor of the upzoning in the Midtown East section, what I call the Grand Central area. I was part of that process. I support the mayor and where he was going in that direction. And one of the things that I asked for, and the mayor was fully aware that is needed, is that as these developers knock down some of the buildings on Park Avenue, build more modern structures, that there becomes a transit credit. The developers will be providing money to allow the Transit Authority of New York to expand their stations, to expand the platforms. That's a critical part of it. If that wasn't part of this plan, we'd have a significant problem. People are rightfully so concerned about congestion, especially on the 4, 5, and 6 trains. It's quite honestly getting quite dangerous on the platforms. And so I firmly believe that if we want to stay as a competitive city, if we want to stay at the forefront of the business world, we need to have the proper buildings, the smart buildings necessary, and I am all in favor of it. And we can do that as well as we can have the West Side and all the work that's being done at Hudson Yards.
Excellent. So we're going to hear closing statements now. We're going to go in reverse alphabetical order as agreed. And Mr. McDonald, you can speak for a minute first.
Well, you know, philosophically, I'm a Republican because I believe in personal responsibility and empowerment. That's what I've been doing for the past 25 years, along with my wife and the wonderful people that have grown the Doe Fund into the organization that you all know and love. I want to be able to show that during these debates that there's a pathway to victory in November, and the pathway has got to be through the minority community. I have 25 years of a solid record of dealing with the issues in the minority community. We have helped tens and tens of thousands of people in all kinds of ways. The most important is by employing them and money in their pocket. You know, it sounds simple, and it is simple. If you want to focus on it, if you have a plan, if you want full employment, you want to create jobs, and you want to build housing, that's what New York City needs. We need to be safe, and now I'm told that I have to stop. Before I do that, I want to thank you all and ask you for your support and ask you for your vote. I need all the help I can get.
Mr. Loda.
Thank you. I said it in my opening statement how much I love this city and how much I love its diversity. But I remember what it was like 20 years ago when even the Observer in its editorials used to say that New York City was ungovernable, it was unmanageable, it was unlivable. So what happened? The people of the city of New York wisely elected Rudy Giuliani 20 years ago, and ever since, a lot of people are alive today because of the reduction in crime and the quality of life initiatives and how everything in the city changed. And I can tell you, Mike Bloomberg continued all of that during his 12 years in office. But you should not and shouldn't be ever lulled into thinking that any of those part of that transformation is permanent or cannot be changed. It is really important to understand as we go forward that who will be the person who will take the city to the next level? Who will be the person who can do that? Based on my private sector experience as well as my public sector experience, I believe I'm the candidate who on day one can continue the city's progress and allow the city to move forward. With that, I'd like to thank you both for the opportunity to be here, and I appreciate it, and I too would like your support, and I would like your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Finally, we have Sean Katzimatidis.
We all stand for almost the same things, but it's all about winning. It's all about making sure that one of us wins because we don't want our city to go in the wrong direction. I sponsored a play on the East Side for Mayor LaGuardia in the last week or so, and it said, I'm not a Republican, I'm not a Democrat, I'm a New Yorker. And that's what it's about. Am I a Republican? Yes. I'm a pro-business Republican, but for 20 years, I was a Clinton Democrat. So it takes a fusion candidate to win for the mayor of New York. And that's what it takes to win. You need the money, and you need the ability to appeal to all sides, and that's me. And I'd love to have your support. Thank you for being here tonight.
Folks, we're going to take a short intermission, then we're going to be hearing from the candidates who are seeking the Democratic nomination. But before we do, I just want to point out you have three very talented, successful people up on the stage. They've held other positions. They have the ability to do pretty much anything that they want. They have chosen to put themselves before you, to spend their time talking about the issues and asking for the support of New Yorkers. Let's give them all a big round of applause, whoever you're voting for. Thank you very much.
Great job. Very nice. Very nice job, sir. Very